Tyrion... What? Celeste? Tyrion, I'm so sorry. I should have listened to you. I should have never left you alone with him. Hey, it's okay. Tears are streaming down her eyes. She was clearly worried about you. You try your best to comfort her as you look around the room. What happened? How long were you knocked out? As you look around, you see several other people with you. Commander White is leading a group of knights. They all have their weapons drawn and pointed at someone. It's Prosecutor Steelwind. Commander, I understand your position, but there has to be another explanation. Look, Your Majesty, I get where you're coming from, but from what the witnesses have told us, it has to be a case of mage blight. You look around the room and see a pool of blood at the end of one of the tables. Celeste, where's Pierce? Tyrion, I don't know how to tell you this, kid, but Garrick Pierce is dead. What? We're honestly surprised that you're okay. But who? You look at the knights who all have their weapons pointed at the prosecutor. Wait a minute. You think Steelwind did this? It wasn't just Lord Pierce, Mr. Cuthbert. We also found the bodies of Lord Von Sanctus and Lady Sybil. Not to mention a bunch of the King's Guard have gone comatose. Comatose? I want to believe it, but several people saw Steelwind acting off at the scenes of each of the murders. We also found her unconscious here, and Pierce's body was lying next to her. No, it wasn't her. I saw Beatrice before I passed out. She was the one that knocked us out. Beatrice? What the hell is going on? Commander White, you need to put me in a holding cell. It needs to be one with an anti-magic field. What? I'm a danger to everyone here. We need to go now. What are you talking about? Now is not the time. Do it, Commander. Right? You watch as the Inquisition arrests Steelwind and escort her out of the room. Damn it, what happened? I know you have many questions, Mr. Cuthbert, but we should make sure that you're okay. Yeah, there's a necromancer in the nave. They have a point. You have no idea what happened while you were asleep. You follow their suggestion, but not before making a note of the current time. It's 3:12 p.m. Yep, doesn't look suspicious at all. Sadly, it looks a lot more reputable than most of your modern doctors these days. Nothing seems to be out of the ordinary, except... What? What's wrong with him? If you would just let me finish... There appears to be a trace of necromancy on you, Mr. Cuthbert. Necromancy? It's probably nothing. Did your assistant cast any spells on you? Oh, right. I used healing magic on him when I found him unconscious. I expected as much. It never hurts to make sure. Anyways, nothing seems out of the ordinary. You're quite healthy. You should be fine to go about your business, but please speak with me again if you experience anything out of the ordinary. Thank you, I am Lord Lazarus Clubius of House Clubius. So if you remember, he's with, I can't remember the dude's name now. Yeah, the apprentice he's referring to right there, but they're all necromancers. No thanks are needed. My apprentice apparently owes you a lot. Apprentice? Wallace Nightgrave. I believe he was one of your clients a few months ago. Right. Steelwind did mention that she introduced you to. Speaking of Steelwind, I really find it hard to believe that she did this. Mr. Cuthbert, mage blight isn't exactly a benign condition. When it takes a hold of a mage, it doesn't matter what kind of person they are. Violent behavior is almost always a result of the delirium it puts them in. It's unfortunate, but mages have to be held responsible when cases like this happen. Unless someone is framing her. Tyrion, I fought her. What? Do you remember back when we heard that weird sound? I went outside to see what was going on. I saw her outside, and the guards there were all unconscious. I tried to ask her what was going on, but she didn't say anything. She just attacked me. What was her emotional state like? Oh, well, she was pretty cold and emotionless. It almost looked like she was sleepwalking. That's actually pretty strange. What do you mean? When someone is affected by mage blight, they enter a state of extreme psychosis. Psychotic episodes like that raise the afflicted mage's paranoia to ridiculous levels. That's why these cases almost always end up in violence. If she was affected by mage blight, she shouldn't have looked anywhere near as calm as you're describing. You might be onto something, Mr. Cuthbert. If what you're saying is true, there has to be more to this. You're planning to defend her, aren't you? At the very least, we need to find out what actually happened. I feel like there's more to this than we're seeing. But you saw her, right? Commander White, you need to put me in a holding cell. It needs to be one with an anti-magic field. What? I'm a danger to everyone here. We need to go now. She wanted them to arrest her. Right, it's as if she thought she was a danger to others. Regardless of what really happened, she clearly believes that she was responsible for this. But there's no way that she'd do something like this. Something else is happening here, and you will get to the bottom of this. You're not sure where each of the murders occurred, but the Inquisition should be able to tell you more about that. You'll also need to speak with Steelwind. If she really was affected by mage blight, she should be able to remember what may have caused it. But anyways, the prayer room is the room you're most familiar with. You'll probably want to start there. There are still so many unknowns. We should continue looking for more clues. Don't push yourself too hard, okay? If you feel tired, don't be embarrassed to take a break. Yeah, I'll try not to exert myself too much. Where do you think we should go next? What? Why are you asking me? I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out where to go next. Well, don't ask me. You're the attorney, I'm just the muscle. In the figurative sense. Right. She's been a bit on edge since she found you unconscious. Does she still feel guilty over leaving you alone? I'm just gonna assume those are all the same. You arrive at the prayer room. It's now swarming with knights from the Inquisition. You find yourself staring at the chalk outline of where Pierce's body once was. You can't help but feel a little uneasy. You've been to plenty of crime scenes before, but even if you were unconscious, you were here when the murder happened. It's a little unnerving knowing how close you came to death. Are you okay? Yeah. But now's not the time for an existential crisis. Steelwood's future counts on you figuring out what happened. You still don't know what happened after you fell unconscious. The Inquisition believes that Steelwood broke into this room, knocked you and Pierce out, and then killed him. But you remember it clearly. You saw Beatrice before you lost consciousness. There's more at play here than you realize. Celeste also fought Steelwood after Beatrice knocked you out. Perhaps she can tell you more about how she was acting. Let's review what happened. Before Beatrice knocked me out, we heard a commotion outside and you went to investigate. Can you tell me more about your fight with Steelwind? What was she like? Well, she wasn't her usual self. It's like she was in some kind of daze. I noticed it even before she attacked me. Something was wrong with her. Oh yeah, and she didn't even respond to me when I tried to talk to her. It's like she didn't even recognize me. But from what Lord Asclepius said, she would have been acting more erratically if she was affected by mage blight. It's possible that you fought someone disguised as her. I guess that's possible. But whoever they were, their magic was still extremely powerful. And several members of the Four Pillar families were assembled here. It could have been one of them. We should speak with Commander White when we get the chance. The Grand Cathedral was closed from the public for whatever was happening here. They probably have a list of everyone who was present when the murders happened. This means that whoever did this was one of the nobles that was here today. Beatrice can cast invisibility, so I doubt she'd let you see her. But did you see her at any point when you were fighting Steelwind? Celeste? Sorry, I don't know. I was too focused on staying alive. I've actually been meaning to ask you about that. Aren't you really strong? I've never even seen you break a sweat in a fight before. Well, she was really tough. It was terrifying, honestly. It was mainly her magic. I've never fought someone with spells that powerful before. She didn't hurt you, did she? No, but it got pretty close. I think she realized that she couldn't beat me, so she just ran past me and into the prayer room. So her real target was Pierce, but why? Did you see the moment she murdered Pierce? No. When I arrived at the prayer room, I saw you and Steelman unconscious on the ground. And Pierce was already dead. And I'm assuming you didn't see Beatrice anywhere. No, she wasn't there when I arrived. How did she leave the prayer room without Celeste noticing? Did she turn herself invisible? So, we have the note about Pierce already being dead, she did not see Beatrice, yada yada. We showed up at the prayer room for the meeting at 1:50 p.m. Then we interrogated Pierce for about half an hour. That's when we heard the commotion outside, and you went to investigate it. Right. And I think Beatrice knocked me and Pierce out 10 minutes after that. How long did you fight Steelman before she pushed past you? We definitely fought for a while. It must have been at least 20 minutes. After that, she gave up on fighting me and ran into the prayer room. Which means that Beatrice somehow got into the room during your fight. That discounts my theory of her disguising herself as Steelwind. You regained consciousness at 3:12 p.m. That means you were knocked out for more than 40 minutes. There are still a lot of unknowns about what happened. You'll need all the pieces if you want to put this puzzle together. There are 3 stained glass windows. They look quite nice. There are lanterns hanging around the room. They're still lit. There's a chalk outline where Pierce's body probably was. Looks like he was sitting against this altar when he died. And the bloodstain seems to imply that the fatal wound came from his chest. An autopsy report would really be helpful here. You should ask the commander for a copy of it the next time you see him.
Repario Arcanum!
There's a trace of necromancy on the ground here. It's probably from when I tried to heal you. There are traces of conjuration magic all over the room. That must have been left by Beatrice's sleep spell. Oh, there's traces of transmutation here. It's all over the area around his body. Interesting. Did the murderer wound him using a transmutation spell? Anyways, looks like you found everything you can here. You should move and take a closer look at the other crime scenes. Okay, that's the same. It's just you, Celeste, and the statue. The horrible statue. I don't feel safe here. Why is that statue freaking you out so much? That Pegasus is literally a celestial like you. I don't know, but I can feel its suffering through the eye. It's an inanimate object, Tyrion. Let's move somewhere else. Alright, whatever it takes to get you to stop acting so weird. What goes through the mind of such a tormented creature? What is with you and this statue? I don't know, but I can feel its emotions as if it were my own. It's an inanimate object.
Repario Arcanum!
You could at least take the hat off it, man. Have some mercy, jeez. Keep telling you, man, that's why I can't believe there's a Heavensborn that can become an attorney. It just makes no sense. You arrive at the dungeon to speak with Steelwind, but you can't find her anywhere. The Inquisition and the Kingsguard must still be processing her. We should come back later. What room have we not used yet? Oh. You retrace your footsteps and find the common room. This was the last place you saw Von Sanctus and Sybil before everything happened. You look around and see that most of the room has been entirely scorched. Yeah, I admit I like their redecorating job. You can still smell the scent of burnt cloth and flesh in the air. What happened here? Was there some kind of fire? Yeah, we think the perp lit a fire using magic. As you enter the room, Commander White approaches you. He seems to be accompanied by the typical Legion of Knights. Commander White? Hey, kid. You investigating what happened to him? Something like that. We just want to figure out what really happened. You and me both. Nothing about this case makes any damn sense. I'll be honest, I could really use your help in trying to figure this out. Honestly, you're not sure who you can trust at this point. But the commander is leading the investigation, and he's bound to have information that will be useful to you. Well, before we do that, even now, the sunlight is shining through the stained glass with the windows. It looks like the fire reached them before it was put out. Yeah, I'm surprised the smoke didn't shatter the things, to be honest with you. There are scorch marks all over the room. The fire must have spread pretty far. Yeah, it was probably going for a while. No one even noticed it until Prince Alaric told the King's Guard that he saw smoke. Interesting. We should speak with him and see if he saw anything else. There's a chalk outline in the center of the room. This must be where they found Von Sanctus's body. There's even bits of ash there. Must be burnt fragments of the body.
Repario Arcanum.
There are traces of evocation in a bunch of different spots around the room. We think the perp threw a bunch of fire-based evocation spells around to start the fire. And the King's Guard used a bunch of water-based evocation spells to put it out before the fire spread. That makes sense. With that knowledge in mind, there's nothing out of the ordinary here. There's a trace of evocation magic near the body. Wonder if the murderer hit him with an evocation spell. There's a trace of abjuration magic in the center of the room. Do the traces overlap with the body? Kinda. It's sort of square-shaped. Square-shaped? I can't see the traces, but there also seems to be a square-shaped outline around the body. You're right. They overlap perfectly. The area inside the square is a lot less burnt now that I look at it. Not sure what this means yet, but it's definitely worth taking note of. It's referring to a barrier spell from the look of it. This whole situation is a damn mess. Has the Inquisition found any clues to explain what happened? We only have the basic stuff so far, and we've only just received the autopsy reports. That's still pretty useful. Do you have copies of them? Sure, knock yourselves out. Died at 2:45 p.m. in the prayer room. Cause of death was blood loss. Shard of frozen liquid is found stabbed through his heart. Very likely this was the murder weapon. Wound shows heavy traces of transmutation magic and traces of conjuration magic were found throughout the room. 2:18 p.m. Cause of death was suffocation. Her body was found floating in a nearby lake outside the Grand Cathedral. Traces of transmutation, evocation, and necromancy were found in the body. 2:05 p.m. The cause of death was suffocation. The fire in the common room burnt the body too much to discern any specific wounds he might have suffered. Small trace of evocation magic and burn mark were found on the victim's left shoulder. The body was hit with a fire-based evocation spell. Traces of abjuration magic were found on and around the body. Wait, Pierce was killed with a frozen blade? Isn't that similar to how he killed Flintheart? Sorry, I didn't mean to... No, it's okay. It's still strange, though. Why would the murderer kill Pierce using such a convoluted method? If Steelin really was affected by Mage Blight, she would have done something like that. So, they also have a comment here about the murder itself, I guess. Anyways, the times of death all seem to tell a story. If we look at the reports, the murderer must have killed Von Sanctus, then Sybil, then Pierce, in that order. Yeah, that's our working theory too. If we look at this map, we can see where the prayer room and the common room are. Lady Sybil's body was found in the lake west of here. But since the Grand Cathedral was built on a cliff, there isn't an easy way to get there in such a short amount of time. Yes, there is. You just jump. Duh. So that raises my next question. So, we'll go with the murderer through Sybil from the balcony. I know I should get in the habit of actually looking at all these wheels, it's just we're early enough in the case to where I can possibly squeak by without doing my due diligence. The Grand Cathedral was built on a cliff over the lake, and the westward balcony just happens to be right over it. Yeah, guess that makes sense. We even have a witness who saw steel in there. Really? Who was it? It was High Speaker Theon Arceus. High Speaker? He's the shot caller of the Church of Bahamut, and he stands at the top of the religious hierarchy from what I hear. He spots Steela near the west balcony and noticed that she was acting suspiciously. He called out to her, but she ignored him. So she knew that he saw her, but she didn't attack him. Yeah, he really lucked out. But if she was having a psychotic episode, he would have noticed that. From what you said, all she did was ignore him. You're right. This whole Mageblight story doesn't really add up. Either way, we'll just have to talk to him directly to find out more. Putting that aside, there's something else that's strange. What's that? It's about the order that the murders occurred in. The murderer killed Von Sanctus, Sybil, and Piers in that order. This means that the murderer went to the common room, then the west balcony, and then finally the prayer room. But if we look at the map, the murderer's route seems a bit strange. So the murderer... I don't really think it's this, so I just want to hit it and see. So let's whip out the evidence. Okay. So they would have had to pass through the nave. So let's see our options here. We have Pierce, Sybil, Von Sanctus, Arceus. So we could have had him... So they're talking about that. Sappers don't have the corridors drawn in here, which is what's a little confusing, because there may not really be a direct room between common to prayer. The murderer must pass right by the prayer room before they dump Sybil's body. Why wouldn't they just murder Pierce on the way there? Maybe they wanted to dump Sybil's body first? Or they were afraid of fighting me. Aren't you giving yourself a little too much credit? No, she has a point. Out of everyone who fought the murderer, Celeste was the only one who didn't die or fall comatose. Anyways, there has to be a reason why the murderer deliberately chose that route. So we have the route clue. Okay, you've created a rough outline of the murderer's actions, but the real clues will lie in how each of the individual murders occurred. And that starts with figuring out how Von Sanctus was murdered. How did the Inquisition find out about the murders anyway? Did a witness come across the bodies? It all started when Prince Alaric ran up to us. He told us that he saw a fire breaking out in the common room. He also saw Steele in there, but when he tried to talk to her, she hit him with some kind of spell. She attacked one of the princes? Yeah, but it didn't look like she hurt him. That guy from House Asclepius inspected him, and he told us that he wasn't injured. I'm glad that he's okay, but wouldn't Aria have used a more violent spell if she was being affected by Mageblight? It's possible she was throwing spells randomly, and he just happened to get really lucky. I suppose that's possible. But was there anyone else nearby when this happened? I would have expected a Prince of Wyvernguard to be under constant guard. Yeah, that was kind of my mistake. I ordered the knights to give him some space considering what just happened. And that would be... Sorry kid, if you don't know, it's not my place to tell you. I have orders from the top to stay quiet about that. Then it looks like you'll need to ask someone higher up. It's still strange though. Why were all these nobles gathered here? Anyways, whatever the perp hit him with, it only put him in a daze. He could barely walk or talk, couldn't even approach us until the spell had worn off. And the weirdest part about all of it was that he was pretty close to where we were. For some reason, we didn't find him until after the spell wore off. That must have been traumatic. I hope he's okay. But why didn't anyone see him during this time? Because he was invisible, that's why. After he told us about what was happening, we went to put out the fires. That's when we saw a bunch of guards knocked out outside the prayer room. Did you see me? No, this all happened around 3:10 p.m. Right, that was probably well after Steele had moved into the prayer room. Celeste must have already followed her into it. So here we have that report that he had detailed. I'm already hating that I'm going to have to read all these documents because I'm not going to be able to do the whole thing in one sitting. When you arrested Steelman, I recall you mentioning that a bunch of guards were comatose. Did the murderer use some kind of spell to knock them out? I don't think so, and I'm just as lost as you are about that. Some of the victims didn't have any magical traces on them, so we know that they're not under the effects of a spell, but they still have woken up. That's odd, to say the least. Is there any common thread between the knights who fell comatose? That might help us deduce what happened to them. Well, we found all of them at the locations where Steelman was spotted. That can't be a coincidence. But he just admitted that they weren't being affected by any kind of spell. What's going on here? So we have the comatose knight clue. Commander White, you keep saying the perp instead of Steelwind, even though everyone else seems to think she was responsible for this. Do you also suspect that she's being framed? It just doesn't add up. If she did give herself mage blight, her actions wouldn't have been so deliberate. And she's definitely not the type of person to just go around murdering people. Even if she was, she's led a lot of Inquisition investigations recently. She's investigated plenty of homicides with us, and she knows exactly how we do things. Whoever did this got the job done, but they were sloppy about it. A bunch of witnesses saw her, and she didn't even try to hide herself using her magic. So either she had mage blight, which doesn't match with her behavior, or she did this intentionally and wanted to get caught. Neither scenario makes any damn sense. Someone has to be framing her. That's the only reasonable explanation. Honestly, I'm not so sure about that either. What do you mean? You saw her when we arrested her, didn't you? She wanted us to lock her up. It's like she thought she was a danger to herself and others. Right, that's the same impression I got as well. If it weren't for the witness's statements, I'd be sure she gave herself mage blight. The strangest thing is that I've never seen her that scared before. Something really rattled her about what happened. Did you follow up on what I said about Beatrice? I know she was in the room when Pierce and I fell unconscious. She has to be involved in this somehow. Well, she's already in prison, so we're already ahead on that account. When we asked her what happened, she said that she couldn't remember anything. That's such an obvious lie. She has to be hiding something. Normally, I'd agree with you, but she's not the only one with missing memories. Steelman also can't remember anything. What? Looks like you'll have to speak with her about that. Anyways, what about Iris the knight who was guarding her? Did they see anything? Sorry, kid, but Iris Ilmater has been missing since everything went down. What? Do you have any idea what happened to her? No, but I wouldn't be too worried. What? A witness of the crime is missing and possibly hurt. Look, kid, you may be a hotshot attorney, but I've been in this business a lot longer than you have. Sometimes when these things happen to civilians, they get spooked and run away. I've seen it a million times. You feel like he's not making as big a deal of this as he should be. But he might have a point. Iris is the daughter of a crime lord, after all. She might have gone into hiding to avoid having to speak with law enforcement. We don't have the resources to look for her, but I'm sure she'll turn up eventually. Well, I suppose we can't do anything about that now. But I still hope she's okay. Anyways, what about the knight guarding Beatrice? Surely he didn't go missing as well. That's the thing. The knight who was supposed to be watching her is one of the people who went comatose. We found him in front of the prayer room, too. Damn it. What happened to him? To make matters worse, that Freyja chick knows how to cast invisibility. So even if she was telling the truth, very few people would have actually seen her. But her guard was in front of the prayer room. She must have brought him there somehow. Anyways, would you happen to have a recent version of her spell compendium? Sure, we already have it on record. I'll worry about all those later. Oh my god, do I have to read all these? So we've dealt with the blight before, mend wounds, this is something we've seen before. Send message we've seen before. Anime course we've seen. I think we might have seen necrotic blight. We saw invisibility with I'm drawing a blank now, crap. Feigned death I think might be new. Yeah, can see the face, but I can't remember. Let's just move forward. Illusory disguise. Right, I forgot how many spells she knew how to cast. It's all a little difficult to take in. I still can't believe it. After everything he did, Von Sanctus was just murdered. I'm surprised to hear that from you. Didn't he basically get away with offing Justin Way? That's the way I see it, he got what he deserved. That still doesn't sit right with me. No matter who the victims might have been, no one deserves to die like that. You're definitely a bigger man than I am. Anyways, Von Sanctus' autopsy report says that he died of suffocation. We think the murderer overpowered him and choked him with a rope or something. That hardly sounds like something someone would do during a psychotic episode. Yeah, the more info I get, the more I think you might be onto something. But either way, the fire that the perp started in this room burnt the body. It didn't completely turn to ash, but it was still pretty charred. So that fire would have burnt away any evidence of the minor wounds he had. Yeah, we're thinking we even discerned he was hit with an evocation spell. Right, the autopsy report mentioned that too. But if a fire was started, is it possible that he died from smoke inhalation? No, the divination spell we use always identifies smoke inhalations as death by poisoning, not death by suffocation. I suppose that kind of makes sense. But it's still a shame we can't find out how the murderer suffocated him. We still know very little about how the murders occurred. Do you have records of each of the victims' spell compendiums? They might help us understand what each of the victims was doing during the attack. Sure, knock yourselves out. So we have Garrett Pierce's. I don't remember what all he had originally. Prestidigitation, Conjure Light, Water, Frost, Shape. I think that's the same because I want to say there were like 5. Slow Fall, Foresight, Strike True, Detect, and Stone Skin. So that most likely means she was dead before she hit the ground or she was incapacitated in some way. And for him, he had Force Cage because clearly he died of smoke inhalation. Oh, please tell me we're not going to be flooded with these suckers. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. 11. Wow. That's a lot to work through. Yep, this is what happens when a bunch of mages are caught in the middle of a murder. Honestly, you've been lucky until now. Nevertheless, I'll need to look over each of these spells when they become relevant. You think you found everything you can relating to Von Sanctus' murder. Perhaps you should move somewhere else. But before we do that, I want to look a little bit over this. So we've done that one in the past, we've done this one, that one, that one, that one. I don't even know why we have all the necromancy stuff from the get-go, but we do. So that requires someone already to be unconscious, so the sleep spell could have been used on the Sybil mage and tossed her over the balcony or something. Conjure Light. Here's one of the important ones. Creates a magical 10x10x10 cube around a target within 30 feet of them. Walls of the cube are impenetrable, cannot be destroyed by anything, and even spells that normally can dispel spell effects. Teleporting in or out will fail. Just more than one creature in the target space will be pushed away from the center of the cube. So you couldn't even save other people with that. Huh. Caster counteracts the force of gravity affecting them, causing them to fall significantly slower when airborne for the duration. And it lasts for an hour, so that's kind of weird. Foresight. More divination crap. here is, I can't remember her name, Celeste, her spell. And then I don't know who had stone skin offhand. You arrive at the west-facing balcony of the cathedral. Supposedly, this is where the murderer threw Sybil's body into the lake. Oh, hello there. As you inspect the area, you catch the attention of an old man nearby. From his garb, he appears to be someone who works at the cathedral. I don't believe we've met before. What are you doing here? Sorry for the intrusion. I'm Tyrion Cuthbert, and this is my bodyguard, Celeste McCoy. We're investigating the murders on behalf of Prosecutor Steelwind. Tyrion Cuthbert? I have heard of you. He doesn't look nearly as criminal as I expected him to be. Judging from his thoughts, he probably hasn't heard many good things about you. But forgive my rudeness, I am Theon Arceus, High Speaker of the Church of Bahamut. So you're the one who saw Steelwind here during the murders. Do you mind if we ask you some questions? Notice he's not a mage. He scans you warily. I suppose there would be no harm in that. We heard that you saw the prosecutor acting strangely here. Could you tell us more about what you saw? Did it look like she was having a psychotic episode? I wouldn't go that far, but she was certainly acting strangely. How did you come across her? Well, I was on my way to the prayer room. I always recite prayers in the draconic texts around that time. Wait, he was heading to the prayer room? When I saw her, I first thought she was just enjoying the view of the lake. I was about to greet her. But when I approached her, I saw that she was throwing something off the edge of the balcony. You must have seen her dumping Sybil's body. You're probably correct. I came to the same conclusion after they found that poor woman's body below us. Although, what is it? I only saw it for a second, so perhaps I'm wrong. But Lady Sybil was wearing much brighter colors this morning. Whatever Lady Steelwind threw into the lake, it looked much darker. What does that mean? I'm sorry, I can't really explain it. Perhaps I was just seeing things. My eyes aren't as good as they used to be, after all. It could have just been a trick of the light. So we got his encounter. Wait, if you saw Aria dumping Lady Sybil's body, she must have just murdered her. That means you must have been heading back. You must have been heading to where we were at that time. Oh, were you praying there with Lord Pierce? Not exactly. What? That's not what the guards told me. The guards? Do you mean the ones who stand watch outside the prayer room? Yes, they told me that Pierce was praying with some acquaintances of his. They said the same thing to Lady Steelwind as well. Wait, Steelwind was there too? Yes, she appeared to be waiting for something. But anyways, I didn't want to disturb them, so I went back to my quarters to pray there. The High Speaker didn't see her fighting Celeste. She must have started her attack after he left, but why would she bother waiting? Either way, we can't exactly question those guards. Yeah, they're still comatose after the attack. So they changed his encounter to his testimony from the look of it. Actually, the High Speaker's quarters aren't that far away from the prayer room. How did you not hear anything? It must have been because of the magical wards in my room. Magical wards? Are they there for security reasons? Not exactly. I actually suffer from chronic insomnia. Even the smallest sound will wake me up at night. Years ago, I had some mages enchant the walls so sound couldn't travel through them. I can't hear anything from outside the room once I shut my door. That does sound awfully convenient, but you doubt he'd lie about something that you could so easily verify. Either way, you should make a note of this. So that's his reason for not hearing the fight. There's just too much here, man. I'm just tossing out random stuff because I can't emphasize that enough. There is a load of crap. This balcony provides a perfect view of Lake Galacrond. A lot of people probably come here when the Grand Cathedral is open to the public. There's some kind of debris on the ground. You pick up one of the pieces and feel it in your hands. It appears to be some kind of gravel.
Repario Arcanum.
There are traces of transmutation on the pieces of debris. That would imply that a spell specifically targeted or created whatever this came from. But I doubt someone created these bits of gravel. It must have broken off from something else. So the debris is the stone skin. You believe that you found everything you can here. Perhaps you should move somewhere else. So just to verify... I can see a military stronghold in the distance. They must be able to see a lot from that high up. Overall, for the background CGs, they did a pretty good job for a lot of these, to be honest. Okay, let's just go down the list because this is much bigger than the previous ones. You arrive back at the cathedral's garden and come across that accursed statue again. It's staring into my soul. Then stop looking at it! As you move your attention away from the grotesque sculpture, you spot the Crown Prince. He's sitting on a bench guarded by some knights from the King's Guard. His brow is furrowed, and he seems to be deep in thought. Oh, Mr. Cuthbert, and Miss McCoy, too. What are you still doing here? We're trying to investigate what happened. We were looking around when we just happened to find you here. I see. Are you okay? Yes, I was just thinking how unfortunate this ordeal has been. I do hope Miss Steelwind is taking this well. Right. She is his fiancée, after all. He must be extremely worried about her. We're trying to find out what exactly happened. Do you mind if we ask you some questions? I see. I'll do whatever I can to help. You said that you two were investigating the murders. You weren't planning to defend Miss Steelwind, were you? If she would have me. She may be a competent prosecutor, but I have far more experience defending clients. Unfortunately, I think the situation is more complicated than that. What do you mean? Several house leaders died today. We can't release this information to the public. Not after the news of William Frigga's death has already spread. In the course of 2 months, we've lost not one, but 3 members of the Pillar families. But the trial has to happen soon, or else the magical traces left will disappear. From what I've heard, we will be holding a trial, but it will be handled privately and internally. And I'm sorry to say that you won't be permitted to serve in such a trial. Right. The majority of the nobility hates me, after all. You wouldn't be able to pull some strings, would you, Aster? I'm sorry, I'd like nothing more than to give you the opportunity to represent her. But I clearly have a personal attachment to this case. If I try to tip the trial in her favor, it will only harm her chances more. Right, I see what you mean. But even if we can't help her during the trial, we can still investigate the crimes on her behalf. Yes, I would really appreciate that. If new evidence is found, perhaps we can exonerate Miss Steelwind of the charges against her. After everything that's happened, I really need to know, why were so many nobles gathered in one place anyways? All 4 of the Pillar families were present. I understand if you don't want to tell me, but this information could be vital in figuring out what really happened. Now I see your point. The truth is, we all gathered to mourn the death of my father, King Olivier de Myrengard IX. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the French pronunciation of this, Olivier, because I think his name popped up a couple times prior to this. Wait, the king is dead? Yes. We wanted to avoid releasing this information to the public so close to the death of William Frigga. My father has been ill for quite some time, so we were prepared for this. Or at least, I thought I was. I also lost my mother when I was quite young, but it's still all a little hard to take in. I'm sorry. You have my condolences. Thank you. But if King Olivier is dead, that would make you... Yes, you currently stand before King Aster de Wyvengard, ruler of our kingdom. Sad and afraid. Considering everything that's happened, he seems less than thrilled about that. I suppose that explains why all these nobles were gathered. They came under the guise of paying their respects, but it's clear they all wanted to get closer to the new King of Wyverngard. I think the Fregas were the only ones who genuinely came to give their condolences. Speaking of the Fregas, I think you need to know. I saw Beatrice before I was knocked out. I think she may have been the one that killed Garrett Pierce. Why would she be there, angry and afraid? I'm sorry, I know that she's your friend, but we already know she's not above committing murder. I see. I suppose if you're saying it, it must be so. But what possible reason would she have to be involved in something like this? I'm not sure yet, but I plan to find that out. By the way, where were you during the murders? I remember you left with Steelwind when Celeste and I arrived at the cathedral. Yes, Steelwind and I left to speak with High Speaker Arceus in his quarters. What was your meeting about? It was actually about our wedding. With my father's death, Lord Steelwind wanted to finally make our union official. Oh. I would congratulate you two, but considering the circumstances... I understand, and I appreciate your words nonetheless. Anyways, how long did this meeting last? I believe you spoke with them until 1:40 p.m. But Von Sanctus died at 2:05 p.m. That means that she began her rampage less than half an hour after that meeting. Was there anything off about her behavior? Now that you mention it, something about her demeanor changed. We were speaking of the wedding when she abruptly left. I asked her where she was going, but she ignored me. That sounds similar to what happened with Celeste Vonner. There's no way she was affected by Mage Blight. So here we have the timestamp of where she was. I honestly didn't think much of it at the time. I'm quite used to her giving me the cold shoulder. Right. It's possible that the Steelwind the witnesses saw wasn't actually real. Does that mean the Steelwind that attended the meeting was also a fake? Anyways, what happened after your meeting with the High Speaker? Did you see Steelwind after that? Actually, I found myself caught up in something else entirely. At 2 p.m., I went to pay my respects to my father's coffin. But apparently someone had set a magical trap there. What? It was a glyph of contingency. So, caster must choose another spell they know. Caster casts that spell, but the contingent spell doesn't come into effect. It takes effect when a certain condition specified by the caster upon casting is fulfilled. And then the contingent spell takes effect immediately when that condition is fulfilled. Lasts for 24 hours. Contingent. I have heard of that spell. It's like a trap you can set, and you can infuse any spell into it. But it requires a second contingent spell to place that trap. Which spell was it? It was a force cage, targeting me. Was the murderer trying to attack Aster too? I don't think so. They would have used a more lethal spell if they wanted to. But from the sounds of it, force cage can't be dispelled. So Aster would have been trapped inside of it for that full hour. We think the murderer used this as a distraction. Because of that trap, the Kingsguard consolidated most of their attention and forces to my location. As a result, there were fewer people guarding Von Sanctus, Sybil, and Pierce. And the ones that were there all fell comatose. They can't tell us what happened to them. So here we get the details about the trap. And yet another inexplicable event is added to the list. After everything you've learned, you highly doubt that Steelwind was affected by Mage Blight. So someone must be behind what happened. But who? Anyways, it seems he's told you everything he knows. He probably didn't witness much after he was trapped by that force cage. You should move somewhere else and follow your other leads. In case you're wondering, I'm going to keep going there first, because I'm expecting everything to... Okay, to move there. She attacked a member of the royal family and killed several nobles. What else is there to investigate? The laws are clear about what we must do. We should execute her immediately. Alaric, this situation is of far too much import to make such rash decisions. We need to approach this calmly and carefully. As you return to the nave, you spot the young prince in an argument with that nobleman you saw earlier. Now that you think of it, you still have no idea who he is. Oh, it's you two. Your Highness. And I don't think we've been introduced. What? I see you're still as insolvent as ever. You stand before Sir Remus Virgile, Archduke and Royal Visor to the Wyvern throne. I believe he means advisor. Archduke? You didn't even know the Kingdom of Wyvern had a title like that. Why haven't you ever heard of him before? So, for the title of Archduke, I believe that would mean he's behind the princes for the throne. Why are you two still here anyways? I thought the cathedral was closed for the investigation. We're investigating what happened on behalf of Prosecutor Steelwind. I see. Anyways, I have much to attend to. I'll be taking my leave. He fears us. You sense a tinge of anxiety. Is he avoiding you? Actually, since we have you here, we have some questions for you. The both of you. You should know your place, knave. Your Grace, where were you when the murders took place? Just what are you trying to insinuate? Please, Alaric, there's no need for that. To answer your question, I was speaking with Lady Frega's familiar. Tracker. No, it was the demon who calls himself Marunath. What? Why would you want to speak with him? He was actually the one that sent for me. According to him, he had some information that was of great import to me. You didn't make a contract with him, did you? Of course not. What kind of desperate fool do you take me for? No, he gave me the information he had freely. But why would he do that? Demons are supposedly always trying to trick humans into making deals with them. Looking back, it must have been a distraction. What a fool I was. I knew he was playing with me. But I knew he couldn't tell lies, and the information he had was too important to ignore. If you don't mind me asking, what was the information about? Fear and sadness? I'm sorry, but I can't reveal what he told me. It could endanger people that I care about. But rest assured, I doubt it has anything to do with the massacre. Your Grace, we've only just met. I can't exactly just take your word for it. I suppose that's fair. But believe me when I say that I plan to take this information to my grave. That's ominous, but he's clearly intent on keeping their conversation a secret. Anyway, several members of the Kingsguard are watching us. They can verify my alibi. How long did this conversation last? I arrived to speak with him at 1:50 p.m. and I didn't leave until 3:10 p.m. Okay, nothing new there. So he was accounted for during the time frame of the murders. But why would Marunath go to the trouble of distracting him in the first place? Whoever orchestrated this also used a force cage to trap Aster. Were they trying to distract the forces in the cathedral? Or were they trying to keep certain people out of the crossfire? Either way, it's clear that Beatrice has a lot to answer for. Your Highness, we heard the prosecutor cast a spell on you when you saw the fire in the common room. Can you tell us more about what happened? I can't believe she attacked a member of the royal family. She was completely irresponsible with her magic. I understand your feelings about this, but we can't say for certain that she inflicted Vigilite on herself. We don't even know if it was actually her. I saw her with my own eyes. Plenty of other people did too. Either way, where did this happen? It was on the path outside the common room. I saw smoke coming from the building, and I saw Steelwind walking away from it. So this must have been after she murdered Von Sanctus. I have a feeling I already know the answer, but was she behaving erratically? No, she very deliberately cast a spell on me. Which once again implies that Mage Blight wasn't behind this. Do you know which spell she cast on you? I'm not sure. I've never been affected by a spell like that before. For the magical traces on it, we know that it was a transmutation spell. Transmutation spells manipulate and change physical matter. It's scary to think about what that might do to a human body. Are you sure he's okay? Lord Asclepius inspected him, and he doesn't appear to have any lasting injuries. We're hoping the spell's effects were only temporary. Can you describe what you felt while you were affected by it? That might help us identify which spell it was. Well, I was extremely dazed, and my ears were ringing. My vision was also partially blurred. It was as if my mind was in some sort of fog. Whenever I tried to speak, I couldn't even form words with my mouth. I could only make grunting sounds. I couldn't walk either, so I had to crawl on the floor. I'm sorry you had to go through that. That must have been traumatic. But what kind of transmutation spell would do that to him? It had to be something that affected his senses. You already told us that she wasn't acting erratically, but was there anything off about her demeanor? I only saw her for a moment, but she was definitely different than usual. She was completely emotionless. Yeah, that's exactly what she was like when I fought her, too. It's like she was an arcane construct. Her movements were almost robotic. Wait, are there any arcane constructs on the cathedral grounds? No, not for the lack of trying on Lord Von Sanctus's part. The High Speaker and I have specifically forbidden the staff here from using them. It would be really convenient if all this was done using a construct. Although you are a little tired of seeing them in your cases. Anyways, was anyone else around when Steelman cast that transmutation spell on you? No, she moved away quickly after she incapacitated me. And even if someone was around, I don't think I could have seen them anyways. So no one's always in that state? Commander White also said that he was surprised no one saw the prince until after the spell was wore off. What happened to him? That covers a Larg's account of what happened, and we even got the Archduke's statement too. But there's still one last person we need to speak to. Aria? She and Beatrice supposedly have no memories of what happened. If it were only Beatrice saying that, I'd probably doubt it. But if Steelwind also doesn't have any memories, it becomes a lot more credible. She definitely has the missing piece we need to put this together. Are you going to the dungeon to speak with her? I am. Wonderful. I'll be accompanying you. What? As the Royal Advisor, I have a vested interest in the investigation. While I trust Lucio to leave no stone unturned, I hear you have quite the talent for seeing what the Crown cannot. Well, it's not as if you have the authority to stop him, but you still don't know him very well. You'll need to be wary of what you say in front of him. You arrive at the dungeon and see the prosecutor sitting in a holding cell. She seems extremely stressed, as if she's trying to figure something out. Mr. Cuthbert, and your grace? Steelman gives a wary look to the Archduke. How are you doing? As best as I can, all things considered. What brings you here? We're trying to investigate everything that happened. I see. I was wondering if you could answer some of our questions. Steelman, I know your situation is pretty grim right now, but you know you can trust me. You're not the person I'm worried about. At this moment, I don't even know if I can trust myself. What? We heard that you don't have any memories of what happened. Is that true? It is. No matter how much I try, I can't recall anything. What is the last thing you remember? I believe I was leaving my meeting with the High Speaker and His Majesty. After the meeting, I was planning to return to the nave to speak with my father, but I suddenly felt extremely nauseous. I thought some fresh air might help me feel better, so I went to the balcony. The one over Lake Galkrond. Yes, that one. Last thing I remember was losing consciousness as I looked at the lake. And did you cast any magic before this happened? No, I didn't. Are you sure you don't remember anything after that? I don't. All I remember is waking up to the sound of someone sobbing. It was Celeste. She was crying over your unconscious body, Mr. Cuthbert. So we get all those details you just mentioned. I feel like we've completely ruled out Mage Blight, so I doubt that's why you can't remember anything. Are there any spells that can specifically modify or destroy people's memories? It would certainly explain a lot of this. No, arcane spells can only affect the physical world. But throughout history, mages have attempted to develop spells that can affect the mind. There's no recorded history of any of them succeeding. But you're assuming that arcane spells are the only type of magic that exists. What? I think you've observed it already. There are magical creatures in this world that don't use arcane magic. Isn't that right, Mr. Cuthbert? What? Does Does he know about the Eye of Horus? I'm not sure what you're trying to imply. Don't take me for a fool. Several of my associates attended Frega's trial, and they all heard what that demon referred to you as. Heavensborn. If I learned that Lumina had anything to do with this, Your Grace, I'm not an agent of the Theocracy. And even if what you're saying is true, I wasn't the one who manipulated Steelman's memories. But I suppose you raise a good point. If something affected Steelman's memories, it wasn't necessarily an arcane spell. In fact, it couldn't have been an arcane spell. It was definitely something else. You're probably right. Which proves that I'm responsible for the murders. What? You just said that you don't have any memories of what happened. Why are you so convinced that you're responsible for this? I told the Inquisition already. I saw Beatrice before I passed out. She's clearly involved in this somehow. There's more to this than you realize, Mr. Cuthbert. For the past few months, the Inquisition and I have been investigating a string of seemingly unrelated murders. During each of those cases, we were able to apprehend the perpetrator without issue. But there was always something off about them during questioning. The murders were always abnormally gruesome and passionate, and each of the perpetrators said the same thing. They all said that they had no choice. No choice. Cases like this have been occurring throughout Wyverngard, and very little connects the perpetrators to each other. All except one thing. Each of them had acted as if someone had controlled them against their will. They were probably just desperate. Most murderers try to make excuses after they're caught. They could even just be in complete denial. Orem said the same thing, but these cases were far too similar for me to ignore. I wondered if they were telling the truth. Perhaps each of these murders was committed by an unknown party. I didn't have any concrete evidence, but I knew I was getting closer to something. Steelwind, I don't mean to be rude, but this sounds completely insane. You don't even have any physical evidence to prove these murders are connected. There's one piece of evidence, but it's hardly concrete. But it does tie each of these cases together. She takes out a small parchment from her pocket and shows it to you. It's a purple symbol. Several of the people you arrested had an item like with this symbol on it. None of them could remember where it came from or even what it was. But they all somehow knew that it was called the Purple Mark. But there has to be an explanation for this. It could just be some esoteric superstition that we don't know about. If that's true, then ask yourself one thing. Where did I get this parchment from? You don't mean. I found it in my pocket after I was properly confined. Whoever I've been chasing must have left it there to taunt me. For all I know, they could have controlled my body and forced me to draw this symbol myself. Either way, this all but proves the massacre at the cathedral is related to it. So, several murders in her pocket, yada yada. I don't want to dismiss what you said, but this definitely won't hold up in court. Nor should it. If my mind has been compromised, I can't take the risk of leaving this dungeon. Otherwise, I could end up harming more people. Wait, are you planning to spend the rest of your life in prison? If that is what is necessary to keep everyone safe. And she was sad and afraid there. But what about Aster? Weren't you two supposed to be married soon? He's the king now, and you can't rule Wyverngard alongside him from a holding cell. You're correct, but he's always been a remarkable person. He should have no problem finding another suitress. And she's not too happy about that. You feel an overwhelming sadness emanating from her as she says that. Aria? No. What? You're not going to sacrifice everything for someone else's actions. Mr. Cuthbert, I am not going to risk more lives. If I were to hurt His Majesty, I would never be able to forgive myself. Please don't ask that of me. So before we do that, let's just do the round one last time. Because truth be told, I am really not looking forward to this. There's just too many pieces. And it looks like we have no choice. So they're not giving you anything about a profile here, they're just expecting you to know what she's like after cases. Steelwind is going to throw away everything she cares about for the greater good. Even if she was the one who did all this, she's not the one who's responsible. You can't let her resign herself to a fate like this. Oh, so they do give us everything already. Acts for the greater good of the kingdom regardless of the amount of suffering she must endure. She's deeply in love with Aster and will do anything to protect him, however she's still a rational person and will be receptive to logical arguments. Steelwind, are you seriously just going to throw your life away? If it were necessary, I would give my life for this kingdom. If someone controlled my actions today, they can and will do so again. As long as that possibility exists, I can't trust myself. A villain controlled my mind. So I assume doubt would be the thing that appeals to logic here. That's assuming this person can continue to do so. We don't know how this mind control works. We can't just drop this without finding out what really happened. I didn't even care to read the other ones, to be honest. But that's assuming this person can continue to do so. You said so yourself. You haven't found any evidence to prove your theory. We don't know how this mind control works, and we don't have enough information. We can't just drop this without finding out what really happened. So it looks like there's 5 pieces here? I suppose you're right. But I doubt there was any goal to this. I've been investigating these murders for months. The person responsible is just a sadistic killer. And I've never been able to find any personal clues as to who the perpetrator is. There's no way to connect them to this. Whoever did this was a sadistic individual who wanted to cause as much suffering as possible. So... there's too many pieces to try to find the exact one. Wow, she has a lot of crap. I'm so tempted to just put a break here so I can reread all this crap. So I kind of want to say it's this one because Aria fought guards but didn't kill them. What is this? The perpetrator wasn't nearly as aimless as you think, and this proves it. So yeah, there's also this piece. Like, I can see a few different ways to argue this, it's just I'm finding trouble figuring out which piece the game wants. That's not true, Steelwind. Whoever did this had very specific targets in mind. Both Prince Alaric and the High Speaker saw you when the murders were being committed. Not to mention, they set a trap for Aster. What? Let's assume that someone was controlling you. They wouldn't have left Alaric, Arceus, or Aster alive if they were trying to kill as many people as possible. Or Celeste, or the guards, which is why this one's very flimsy for what all it takes. Oh, so maybe it was only 4 pieces after all. I suppose you have a point there? But even so, that hardly narrows things down. If someone was controlling me, they wouldn't need to enter the cathedral to use me. Perhaps you're right, and the perpetrator only wanted to murder the 3 victims. There's plenty of people who might want to see those 3 dead. The perpetrator didn't need to enter the cathedral to commit the murders. Where is it? I want to say it's this one, but once again I'm not sure what the triggers are. There's one thing you're overlooking. Before the murders started, someone trapped Aster within a force cage using Glyph of Contingency. But they didn't harm him, it was probably just a distraction. Even so, this gives us 2 very important clues. The first is that whoever did this is capable of casting those 2 spells. This means that the perpetrator was a mage. That's true. But the second clue is the most important one. Whoever set that trap for Aster, they did so within 24 hours of it triggering. This means that the perpetrator must have been someone who attended the funeral. So it was one of them? That narrows down our list of suspects substantially. There's a chance we can identify who did this, and if they really did control your actions, we can find a way to prevent them from doing so again. Steelwind, you need to fight this. I can't. Sadness and fear? What? Why not? If we pursue an individual like this, they might retaliate even more than they already have. They wanted to remove me from my position. How would they react if I try to resist? They might hurt even more people to send a message. It's far too dangerous. So, fighting this will put people in danger. So we can appeal to her. We can't back down in the face of injustice. Will the perpetrator get away with this? We're letting them know that their actions go unanswered. Yeah, I'm inclined to appeal. Nope. Easy for you to say. You're not the one putting your loved ones in danger. Well, that's because all his loved ones are dead already. So, let's just try threatening. Ah, I was right. Whoever did this had a far bigger goal than you, and you have no guarantee that they'll stop there. 3 nobles died today, and 2 of them were near the top of the political hierarchy. What if they decide to go after more victims? Who will they target next? Your father? The king? Anger and fear? We need to catch them before they can do more harm. I know you're frightened about what might happen to the people close to you, but we can't let someone that dangerous get away with this. When you put it that way, I suppose I have no other choice, do I? I never realized it before, Mr. Cuthbert. What? You really have a bad habit of butting your nose into other people's business, don't you? Yeah, I suppose I do. But you're right, we can't let this go. I'll find a way to dispute this, somehow. Thank you, Mr. Cuthbert. I think we've known each other long enough. You don't need to be so formal. You successfully argued against Aria Steelwind. Perhaps I misjudged you. I know I agreed to fight this, but what is it? You're the most qualified attorney in the nobility. You'll definitely be able to make a case for yourself. As you probably know, House Sybil controls the legislative and judicial branches of our kingdom. And they've nominated my father as the prosecutor for my trial. What? No one believes my theory of mind control. Everyone believes that I overspent my magic and gave myself mage blight. As a result, they blame House Steelwind for quarreling Sybil's death. Now, the only way for him to redeem House Steelwind is to convict me and sentence me to death. But he's your father. There's no way he would... This isn't the first time something like this has happened. When I was a child, my mother accidentally overused her magic and induced mage blight within herself. In her resulting psychotic episode, she massacred an entire village of commoners. No. House Steelwind almost lost everything after that. To redeem himself, my father personally oversaw my mother's trial. and her execution. That's... My father values his duty to Weimar over everything else. Nothing matters more to him than that, not even his family. I want to have confidence in myself, but I don't know if I can face him like this. Mr. Cuthbert, what is your stake in all this? What? You hate the nobility, don't you? So why are you so intent on helping Miss Steelwind? Because she's innocent. I know she is. She never would be irresponsible enough to give herself mage blight. Mr. Cuthbert, it doesn't matter if she's a noble or a commoner. She's being oppressed by the system, and she deserves a fair trial. Well said. Sorry, my voice. I need to get a drink. Okay, here's hoping my voice can hold out, because if you hadn't noticed, for the couple lines back, it started to crap out. What? I, Rebus Virgili, hereby grant you the privilege to serve as Miss Steelwind's counsel. Wait, really? I will be acting as the judge and arbiter of Miss Steelwind's trial. It is within my right to grant such permissions. Thank you. But why would you? Do you think I've made a mistake? No, of course not. I'll serve as Steelwind's attorney, if she'll have me. Of course, there's no one else I would trust more with this. And please, you've done a lot for me already. You don't have to be so formal. Please, call me by my first name. Celeste has already taken to doing that. But since you'll be defending me, you'll probably need this. So you can see all of her spells there. Mend, Fire, Bolt. I think that one's new. Steel and Strike is something new. Polymorph and Hold Creature. 120 feet, wow. Because I forgot what the record is. I think competitive knife throwing is like accurate up to 20 feet. Hold Creature restricts the movement of target. Target's unable to move. Target will be unable to move their mouth to speak. Power of Mage Blade. Can cut through metal armor. And Polymorph. So this is what was done to the prince so that he couldn't do whatever it was. Must fit into a 2x2x2 cube. Dispel magic. Then it's settled. We will hold the trial in my home, the city of Leyden. Leyden? I've never heard of that place. Speak with Lucio, he knows the location well. Before you can ask any more questions, the Archduke leaves without a word. He really has a bad habit of just walking away from conversations. But I guess we should consider ourselves lucky. Even if it's unorthodox, the situation will let us approach this like any other trial. You had no idea what you were in for when you agreed to this. And what proceeded next would be unlike any trial you've ever been in. But even so, you persevered as you've always done in the name of justice, regardless of what you'd have to sacrifice to do so.